Hello, Mr. Ranga. My name is Andrika Putra Abhyasha, and I will be doing the sixth homework. Part 1. Read this text correctly. You don't have to be French to enjoy a decent red wine. Charles Jocelyn de Gaulle used to tell his foreign guests whenever he entertained them in Paris. But you do have to be French to recognize one, he will add with a laugh. After a lifetime in the French diplomatic corps, the Count de Grasse lived with his wife in an elegant townhouse on Quai Voltaire. He was a likable man, cultivated of course, with a well-deserved reputation as a generous host and an amusing raconteur. This evening's guests were all European and all equally convinced that immigration was at the root of Europe's problem. Charles de Grasse said nothing. He had always concealed his contempt for such ideas, and in any case he had never much cared for this particular guest. The first of the red Bordeaux was being served with the veal, and one of the guests turned to the Grasse. "Come on, Charles, it's simple arithmetic, nothing to do with race or color. You must have bags of experience of this sort of things. What do you say?" "Yes, General Bags." Part 2. Read this word correctly. A pen, a postcard, a pencil, a passport, a pin, a passenger, a pear, a policeman, Peter, a newspaper, poppy, a pepper pot, Paris, a spoon, empty, helpful, stop talking, upstairs, plate, brush, wait, clean, laugh, painted, snowed, pushed, shout, shouted, closed, watch, wanted, filled, danced, landed, studied, walk, departed. Part 3. Read and compare between two words. Pin, bin, pen, ben, pear, bear, cap, cab, pup, pub, poppy, bobby, tor, door, tarts, darts, cart, cart, right, right, train, drain, trunk, drunk. Part 4. Read this long text correctly. She was walking lazily, for the fierce April sun was directly overhead. Her umbrella blocked its rays, but nothing blocked the heat, the sort of raw, wild heat that crushes you with its energy. A few buffalo were tethered under coconuts, browsing the parched verges. Occasionally a car went past, leaving its traces in the melting pitch like the wake of a ship at sea. Otherwise it was quiet, and she saw no one. In her long, white Sunday dress, you might have taken Jeannie Noreen for 14 or 15. In fact, she was 12, a happy, uncomplicated child with a nature as open as the red hibiscus that decorated her black, waist-length hair. Generation earlier, her family had come to Trinidad from India as overseers on the sugar plantation. Her father had some success through buying and clearing land around Rio Cristalino and planting it with coffee. On the dusty verge, 20 yards ahead of Jeannie, a car pulled up. She had noticed it. It cruised by once before, but she did not recognize it and could not make out the drivers through its dark windows, themselves as black as its gleaming paintwork. As she walked past it, the driver's glass started to open. "Hello, Jeannie," she heard behind her. She paused and turned. A slight color rose beneath her dusky skin. Ravi Krejani was tall and lean, and always well dressed. His black eyes and large white teeth flashed in the sunlight as he spoke. Everyone in Rio Cristalino knew Ravi. Jeannie often heard her unmarried sister talk ruefully of him, of how if only their father were alive and they still had land, one of them might marry him. And then they would squabble over who it might be and laugh at Jeannie because she was too simple for any man to want. "How do you my name, Ravi?" she asked with a thrill. "How do you know mine?" "Everyone knows your name. You're Mr. Krejani's son." "Right, and where are you going, Jeannie?" She hesitated and looked down at the ground again. "To chapel," she said with a faint smile. But Jeannie, good Hindus go to the temple. His rich, cultured voice was gently mocking as he added with a laugh. Or maybe the temple pundits aren't your taste and color. She blushed more deeply at the reference to Father Olivier. She did not know how to reply. It was true that she liked the young French priest, with his funny accent and blue eyes, but she had been going to Catholic chapel for months before he arrived. She loved its cheerful hymns and the simple creed of one God, so different from those miserable Hindu gods who squabbled with each other like her sister at home. But added to that, the vulgarity of Ravi's remarks bewildered her because his family were known for their breeding. People always said that Ravi will be a man of honor, like his father. Ravi looked suddenly grave. His dark skin seemed even darker. It may be that he regretted his words. Possibly, he saw the confusion in Jeannie's wide brown eyes. In any case, he did not wait for an answer. Can I offer you a lift to chapel in my 21st birthday presents? He asked, putting his sunglasses back on. She noticed how thick their frames were. Real gold, she thought, like the big, fat watch on his wrist. It's a Mercedes from Papa. Do you like it? He added nonchalantly. From the shade of her umbrella, Jeannie peered up at a small lone cloud that hung motionless above them. The sun was beating down mercilessly, and there was an urge in the air and an overpowering sense of growth. With a handkerchief, she wiped the sweat from her forehead. Ravi gave a tug at his collar. It's air-conditioned, Jeannie, and you won't be late for chapel. He continued, reading her mind. But chapel must have been the last thing on Ravi's mind when Jeannie, after a moment's hesitation, accepted his offer. For he drove her instead to a quiet sugar field outside town, and there, with the Mercedes concealed among the sugar canes, he introduced himself into her. Jeannie was in a daze. Young as she was, she barely understood what was happening to her. The beat of calypso filled her ears, and the sugar canes towered over her as the cold draft from the air conditioner played against her knees. Afterwards, clutching the rag flower that had been torn from her hair, she lay among the tall, sweet-smelling canes and sobbed until the brief tropical twilight turned to starry night. But she told no one, not even Father Olivier. 2 weeks later, the little market town of Rio Cristalino was alive with gossip. Ravi Kerjani had been promised the hand of Sunita Murpalani. Like the Kerjanis, the Murpalanis were an established Indian family, one of the wealthiest in the Caribbean. But while the Kerjanis were diplomats, the Murpalanis were a commercial family. They had made their fortune in retailing long before the collapse in oil prices had emptied their customers' pocket. And now Murpalani stores were scattered throughout Trinidad and some of the other islands. Prudentally, they had diversified into banking and insurance, and as a result their influence was felt at the highest level. It was a benevolent influence, of course, never abused, for people always said the Murpalanis were a respectable family, and well above reproach. They had houses in Port of Spain, Tobago and Barbados, as well as in England and India, but their main residence was a magnificent, sprawling, colonial-style mansion just to the north of Rio Cristalino. The arranged marriage will be the social events of the following year. When Jeannie heard of Ravi's engagement, the loathing she had conceived for him grew into sort of numb hatred. She was soon haunted by a longing to repay that heartless, arrogant brute. She would give anything to humiliate him, to see that leering, conceited grin wiped from his face, but outwardly she was unmoved. On weekdays she went to school, and on Sundays she went still to Father Olivier's afternoon service. Girl, you sure does have a lot to confess to that Whitey. her mother would say to her each time she came home late from chapel. "He's not a whitey, he's a man of God." "That as may be, child, but don't forget he does be a man first." The months passed and she did not see Ravi again, and then it rained. All through August the rain hardly stopped. It rattled persistently on the galvanized roof until you thought you would go mad with the noise. And if it stopped, the air was as sticky as treacle, and you prayed for it to rain again. Then one day in October, towards the end of the wet season, when Ginny's family was celebrating her only brother's 18th birthday, something happened that she had been dreading for weeks. She was lying in the hammock on the balcony, playing with her 6-year-old nephew Penny. Suddenly, Penny cried out, "Ginny, why are you so fat?" Throughout the little frame house, all celebrations stopped. On the balcony, curious eyes were turned upon Ginny, and you can see what the boy meant. "God have mercy on you, Virginia. Watch the shape of your belly," cried Mrs. Narine, exploding with indignation and pulling her daughter indoors away from the prying neighbors' ears. Her voice was loud and hard, and there was a blackness in her eyes like the blackness of the skies before thunder. How could she have been so blind? She cursed herself for it, and harsh question burst from her lips.